Hey everybody, this is Workforce Gaming. I'm Doug, along with Brad.
Hey, everybody.
And this week, Crytek actually sent us a review copy of Robinson the Journey. And Brad, with his brand new shiny PSVR that he bought all by himself after
Very
making fun of me how
fiscally
much.
responsible of me.
Yeah. So Brad is actually the one who got to finish this, and Brad will be the one reviewing this. So Robinson VR, Robinson the Journey VR was kind of one of those. I would say Crytek does this quite a bit, where everyone's like, this is sort of one of those pushing the boundaries of hardware. Crytek did it with Far Cry. They did it with Crisis One, arguably Crisis Two and Three,
Whatever
and
that
now they're.
thing was for the Xbox One, the Gladiator one.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
want to say like
shoot.
Rise or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So they're
Yeah,
always doing this. It's kind of neat. So like they always do this thing where they're kind of pushing the hardware for whatever system, and then they did this for PSVR. And I think when they first showed the trailer, a lot of people are like, "Oh, the game can't look that good." So I actually haven't played it. So and I really don't know a lot about this game at all. So Brad, you're gonna have to take it on this one because yeah, I have no idea what this game's
yeah.
about, and I think just like the general stuff leading up to this, like scanning dinosaurs, and that's all I know.
You do. You scan a lot of dinosaurs. No, this is like that trailer that came out kind of put you in this mindset of like you're running through the jungle and there's dinosaurs around, and that alone to me like sold me on this game and sold me on
Mm-hmm.
like that seems like that would be really cool in VR to run around with dinosaurs. And that's basically what this game is just running around with dinosaurs. But I think kind of the thing with this is that first quote unquote like full VR game and not an experience in my mind
Mm-hmm.
because this is I've only had the VR for about a week and a half now, but messing around with it with everything else that's here, it's all those short, 30 minutes, hour long. I think Arkham might be the longest thing other than this that I played, and that's about an hour and a half, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it was different. It was kind of cool to see this is the first full length VR game, and like you said, this game is very very pretty. Now I'll preface that with saying for PlayStation VR. Because it definitely does not look like those trailers. Like those trailers were, they might have been in engine before exported into the great graphics of the PSVR headset.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is probably the prettiest looking PSVR game. I will give
Wait.
it that.
Oh wow, like better than Arkham?
On par with Arkham. Maybe it's a little bit different to Arkham just because this is you're rendering big like gorgeous environments. You have these big far off things. You've got a lot of distance you can see. You can stand on a cliff and you can look out and see the remnants of a crashed or a spaceship, and you can
Mm-hmm.
see waterfalls in the distance and everything. So it's got that more of that field of view versus Arkham, which is a very confined game where you're never really
Oh,
in
I can see
anything
that.
bigger than a single room. So I think
Mm-hmm.
Arkham might have that intimate, like everything's close, like fine details of everything, but this has that just large scale, like wow, this is okay, kind of a cool pretty environment. Like there's one point where you're in a cave and you're looking up and there's a waterfall in front of you and just kind of stuff like that, just that scenery piece.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so
So what
this
is this
game,
game? Like, what do you do in this game? Because like really, all the trailers leading up to it kind of looked like a Until Dawn roller coaster ride is not probably the right way to put it, but it looked like one of those like guided roller coaster experiences,
yeah, no,
kind of like the other VR. So you actually do walk around. You have agency.
this is a complete, yeah, you have agency. You can do the couple things. I don't know if in any order or not, but you can do them in different order.
Mhm.
I don't know. There might be one or two that you have to. I mean, obviously, you have to hit the last section final, but
But what do you do, Brad? What do you do?
so it it is. And those of you who watched our videos before know that this isn't a bad term from us. This is kind of almost that walking simulator,
Hmm.
where essentially you're a boy who's crash landed on this planet. At the point at the beginning of the game, I won't really give you any spoilers or anything, but at the point at the beginning of the game, it's you, your AI companion, and your pet Tyrannosaurus Rex, because that's awesome.
What?
Yeah, you have a Tyrannosaurus Rex, like, which I didn't even know until like the opening scene is just like this Tyrannosaurus Rex in front of you, and you're like, or this baby Tyrannosaurus Rex, you're like, whoa, what the hell? And then like you wake up and it's like does like 3 years later or 3 months later or whatever. I don't remember the time jump,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden you wake up and here's like, oh, where's your pet Tyrannosaurus Rex? And you're like, what? And then all of a sudden here it comes clopping like up to you,
Ah.
which is pretty sweet. Like you got a pet Tyrannosaurus. But anyway,
Yeah.
essentially what the game is it starts out as just you just kind of wandering around trying to live your life here, trying to survive. And then you find these Higgs units, which is your AI, which is I don't know. I couldn't get all the lore out of this, obviously, but
Hmm.
essentially every human had like a Higgs unit thing, which is like think like a
You'll. Mhm.
think like the I can't think of the name of them from Halo. The little floating ball. I've put hundreds of hours into Halo over the course of my life, and I cannot think of the damn thing's name.
It was evil in one game, I think.
Yes, it was. I think in multiple, but whatever that floating thing, holy shit!
Floating AI ball can cover it, Brad. You can keep going.
Oh, it's gonna piss me off. Anyway, guilty spark. There we go. Anyway, it's like that. So every person has one of those, and you find like a broken one, and it starts kind of giving you these clues. So the rest of the game is you going to these 4 areas to find these broken AI things and see what you can recover, because you're a kid, so you don't really know what was going on. You don't necessarily have the full picture of what happened with the spaceship that left Earth that crashed onto here, and where all of your parents went and where all these other people went. So you go to like your farming place where you've been growing food for the past however long you've been there, and then you go into like the jungle, and I think the other one's like called like a tar pit or something. But basically you just go to these other different places to find these missing robots, and it's just you walking around solving very basic puzzles, just kind of doing that thing where you're just kind of wandering around trying to explore this world, essentially. Which, again, like there are lots of walking simulators that have done that really well, but this is the first one I feel like that's in VR, where it's just I'm wandering around a world in VR, which is really cool to do, because it does give you that sense of I'm in a different world. Like I'm actually here walking around. Like this is me walking around, not necessarily my character, like we've talked about before.
Yeah. Oh, so I mean, it does have that really strong sense of presence, and
Not so much as you would think with like Batman and stuff, where you get, and I think in one of our VR videos we talk about this, where it's you get that intro scene of like you putting on the bat suit, or you're doing this thing where it's really putting you inside the character. It's kind of lacking that. You never really get a full picture of who your character is, other than just like lost boy on this planet. Which does hinder it a little bit in terms of like the actual narrative and wanting to follow through with the story. A lot of it's just this kind of cool walking around, seeing these dinosaurs, seeing what's going to come next.
does that, just the fact that you're walking around being in this world, does that like care, does that sort of wonder, do you have like a sort of like wonder with that carries on through the entire game? Because it's a little bit longer than most like VR games from what I understand it. Like I think you're saying like 5 or 6 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it was right around 5 or 6 hours. It does drag a bit at different points just because of what you're doing, but it does a good job of kind of mixing it up. So you go in one place and you run into raptors. You go into one place and you run into a herd of long necks. You go. Those aren't spoilers. They're in the trailer. Like they're dinosaurs. Like at some point you see a velociraptor. At some point you see a long neck. Like, oh no! Like who would have thought? But anyway, you see these different types of dinosaurs. So it's almost just that kind of like, okay, once you kind of get the idea after the first or second one of like, oh, I'm just gonna walk in here. There's gonna be some cool dinosaurs. I'm gonna find my thing. I'm gonna walk home. Again, it does get into a little bit of a pace, but like being 5 or 6 hours, like it's not a huge deal that it kind of starts to get that very similar feeling. It does at the end, though. At the end, there are a couple of really tense moments, because for the most part, you don't have any conflict in this. It's just you wandering. But at the end, you run into some more aggressive dinosaurs, and there's a lot more of the like sneaking around, like I hope I don't get eaten type situations that I kind of hoped would, that I wish would have been a little bit more throughout the game. Because for the most part, it's a lot of just you just kind of walk around, and there might be a threat over here somewhere, but nothing really happens to you.
So I mean, like, did you enjoy it? I mean, like, so I mean, I guess that's kind of the idea of the game. It's kind of like you said, the walking simulator, kind of running around scanning, doing simple puzzles. I mean, I guess when we always talk about this stuff, it's like, did you actually like the game? Because kind of what it all boils down to. Because to me, something like that, like the sense of presence, would be like, oh, that's awesome on a dinosaur planet. Like, so yeah, I mean, at the end of all, like, how'd you feel about it?
That is a very interesting question. I don't know. This is one of those games where like I have plenty of reasons that I think everybody should play it. There's 1 or 2 scenes in this, just where you're interacting with a couple of the dinosaurs that are awesome. One in particular with the long necks that just like is that Jurassic Park moment in my mind, where you know you've got Dr. Grant and he kind of comes over the hill and you see these like animals stampeding and everything. There's one scene that's kind of like that in this game where it's just like, whoa, like what just happened? That was really cool. But my issue is this is one of those games where it's like, if you take away the VR out of this, it's not a great game. And I think the problem that I'm going to run into with VR is the game is justified for being a VR, but it's not necessarily justified as a game. You know what I mean? Like this is the simplest type of game that you could make, And if this was released without the VR and it was just released on its own, there's literally nothing to it that would make me go, you should play this. But just the VR aspect of it puts me in the position of going, you know what? You should give it a try because it is kind of cool to wander around and see these dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of understand that perspective though, because like a lot of VR games, like, well, if you took away the VR, then is this a good game? But the thing is, like, this game was released in VR. Like, that's like a
Yeah,
hypothetical situation. Like, there is something that the VR adds extra to it. Like, the Until Dawn is just like basically like it's a light gun shooter, but
yeah,
being in a light gun shooter feels very different than just playing a standard light gun shooter. So I imagine something like this where yeah, there's a lot of games where you can like wander around, like there's and like interact with creatures, but the fact that you're like in VR interacting with the creatures definitely adds an extra element to it.
yeah. And I think that's kind of the thing with this. And in my mind, I'm thinking this game is very ambitious compared with the other games that are out there for PSVR at this point. Like
Mm-hmm.
this game is essentially saying, you know what, we're going to make a full game, and we're going to not sit here and try and limit this to like Arkham VR, which I keep going back to because that's the VR game I spent the most time with. Other than this, where you're just going to push a button to move from spot to spot,
Yeah.
and you're just going to click a button to interact with things. This is much more of like, okay, you need to actually take this, you need to pull this. You have like a tool that you can kind of levitate stuff with. So you need to go wander over here, grab this, bring it back over here, grab this other part from over here, put them together, and then you make a bridge. So it does have that game aspect to it.
So I mean, if this is kind of like the first game in VR, kind of like what you're saying, like full fledged game. I mean, does it still feel like because we always talk about this when we talk about like the beginning of a new generation of consoles. Like there's this sort of like the testing the waters with testing waters, the
Oh,
engine,
hell
testing the
yes.
water, testing the water with
Hell
gameplay.
yes.
I,
This is
mhm.
this is for sure one of those games that if you are listening to this in the year at the end of the year 2017, like this is going to have that feeling of like going back and playing like GoldenEye 64 where you're like, man, this is really how we did this.
Yeah.
It definitely has that okay, this is our first shot at it.
Mhm.
But again, like it works. And there's some weird stuff with the controls. I know a lot of people ended up with motion sickness with this, which I did initially, I think after about a half hour, and then I realized that you could change the controls. So they actually gave you like 3 or 4 control options for like handling the camera because it plays. And if you kept your head straight, you could play it just as you would like a normal first person adventure game where you're just using the right stick to look, the left stick to move around. But initially it's set up to, I don't remember the degrees on it, but it's essentially like 60-degree turns. So instead of having full range of your body,
Yeah.
you have like your head, you can walk forward and you can move your head as you're walking forward, but to move left or right, it gives you like if you're looking forward, it shifts your view 60 degrees, not smoothly, just like as a cut essentially.
Oh, Here They Lie does that as well. So it does something
Yes,
similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, same thing. And that to me, like I literally played for 10 minutes and like just paused, took it off, sat there for 5 minutes, like, okay, this is going to be a really slow game because I don't think I can do this for more than 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
But then I just, out of curiosity, like I was like, okay, is there some way to like adjust this? Like, is there some control thing? But they had where you could just set it up as a normal one, and that honestly, like, it's very weird, but it takes away the motion sickness. So it's, I mean, you can turn to look to the right, but then your body's still facing forward, and then you actually hit the right stick right to move your body that way to like angle your body, which sounds like a whole lot of moving. Like, so essentially, if you want to look forward the whole game and you don't ever move your head,
Yeah.
you can play it like a normal game where you like use the right stick to look right, and then as you're looking right, you can push forward and you move diagonally.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can still have that, but as you're doing that, you also have the range to be able to move your head to look around.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Is that kind of well? No, even Battlezone lets you turn. Oh, okay, that's kind of a weird control scheme. Because I'd heard there's some like weird stuff with control scheme, but like once, because isn't that like expert mode or something too? I'd heard there's like something weird with like how the control schemes are named.
Oh, I didn't even look at the names. I don't remember. I literally just clicked through them and like found that, and that again. And I think it's just having played games for the past 20 years, like that to me makes sense. That's how 3D games work. So I can't imagine like giving somebody who's never played a game, that set of controls, because I feel like that would make them sick of like this is turning my head for me even though my head's not moving essentially. You know what I mean? I think that, but for me, it's just that's natural. Like that's how a video game works. So it's just kind of, it just I don't know. It worked for me. The quarter circle is like literally 10 minutes, and I was about to throw up.
Oh, jeez.
But once you get used to it, once you get used to it, once you get into it, like it totally went away for me. Like I played it for about 2 hours the other day straight and had no issue with it. So I really think it's kind of that, once you get used to it thing. But
Yeah, I mean, it's getting like your VR legs too, because I know like when I first put on
yeah,
the VR stuff and I was like messing around with it, like I did get that like little like huh in my stomach like once or twice. But then like since I've been playing like the VR just in general for a long time, like it hasn't I haven't had that issue yet, except for Drive Club VR. But
dude, that one's bad. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. The other thing with this is, and I think this is just going to be a VR thing in general. I wish it had motion controls or move controls. I wish it used the move controls instead of the traditional controller. I really do. And I think that part of that is going to come with experimenting with control schemes, because I really don't know if there's a way to make this work with the move controllers where you actually have free range of motion for everything. But there's just something different about that level of immersion in VR that I feel like is really, really what's selling me on VR so far. Like Battlezone, even though you use the original control or the DualShock, it's still like, okay, if I'm in a tank, I'm going to be pushing buttons.
yeah,
It
I was just about to
makes
say that
sense.
the cockpit ones, like I was gonna say the cockpit ones, like definitely make sense for you to move using your controller, or like the more like Thumper makes sense to be using controller because you're kind of
Yeah,
controlling a beetle. But like when you are that person, like there is that level of immersion that's added for sure when you're picking up the gun and you're doing the things. Yeah.
yeah. So like, there's a couple places where you have to climb up, and instead of just in my mind, like I should be like, I can see my hands on the screen. I should be able to just lift my hand and grab that. But instead, you have to do the old school like L2 R2 climbing thing, which is kind of funky. But yeah, overall, this is one of those things where I enjoyed my time with it. It's not something I think I'll end up going back to over and over again, but it's something that there's one or two scenes in where if I could just jump to those scenes and there's somebody I'm showing VR to, there's one or two scenes in this where it's like, okay, watch this because it's kind of crazy. Like, again, just I mentioned raptors before. There's, always that. A lot of this stuff took me back to Jurassic Park because I love Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
but you get that same feeling of like when they're seeing the raptors of like, oh god, like there's one scene that like to this day in Jurassic Park, the stupid kitchen scene, like sits there, like I get shaky every time I see like the kids running through the kitchen with the raptors.
Oh yeah.
There's a scene in there where it gave me that sense, but like even more because you've got to kind of like, shit, there's raptors in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Which again, like for VR, that's what you want. But
Yeah.
again, if you're looking for like deep gameplay, and I think this is just going to be the caveat with VR for the first while, is if you're looking for that deep gameplay experience, if you're looking for anything more than just this kind of like, whoa, this is cool, I'm wandering around this world, you're not going to find it here. But as a game where you're just kind of exploring, looking at dinosaurs, you mentioned like scanning things, like just looking at stuff. It works great, and the story works. It's a kind of traditional sci-fi story of you crash landed on a planet, survive, figure out what happened, which, sci-fi me is very okay with. So.
No, that's kind of cool. I mean, this is a game. Like I hope to pick it up in the future once the price goes down. This is like a full price title, but I am kind of glad. At least it seems like it sort of justifies its full price, because I think that's kind of weird right now. Is just pricing in VR in general. It's like you have these very
Yeah,
simple. Simple is maybe not the right word, but games that are like very singular gameplay experience. Like Thumper is like if you play like Thumper for 10 minutes, like you've kind of got Thumper. Or if you play Super
yeah,
Hypercube for 10 minutes, you kind of got it. Or even Res or some of these. This one seems to be like, well, no, there's actually more gameplay aspects. It's gonna be a longer game and things
yeah,
like that. So
yep. It very much has all the elements of a traditional game. There's I could not sit here and say like this is a game that would work without VR. This is a game, again, wouldn't have the same, like we'd be having a much different conversation if VR wasn't a part of it. But it does fulfill all those traditional game requirements: story, characters, narrative, action, everything you would picture in a game is there in this, which is cool. And it's the first VR experience I feel like that really tries that, which you're never going to be the perfect thing when you're first, but it's always cool to be that first thing of having that, this is the future of VR in my mind. Playing this is going, okay, this is the precursor to what VR will be in 2 years.
that's pretty exciting. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's a good place to end it. I think it's kind of neat just in general, like PSVR. Like if you get a PSVR, like just be aware you're seeing a lot of experiments, but there are a lot of very unique experiments, and it's kind of neat seeing that stuff for the first time. It's not people just messing with engines like you buying a PS3 for the first time, like that first generation PS3 or PS4 games. It's people messing with new ways to play games. I think that's definitely at least something interesting to see, especially since we've been playing games so long. Just something new is kind of always exciting.
For sure.
So we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us at Workforce Gaming on Twitter. You can always subscribe to us on YouTube, and wherever else you're listening to us on, because I think we are in a few other places as well.
We are. It's true.
All right, and Brad, we have some more. We have actually a lot of more PSVR stuff from Brad coming up, and we'll link that into another video. So, see you guys next week.
See ya.